Hello and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm your host, Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor at Large at Black Enterprise. And as always, we have a great topic and a great guest. This edition of Beyond the Hype is brought to you by John Hancock. Now, you know at Black Enterprise, our broader mission is wealth for life, and we talk about everything on Beyond the Hype, but there's always a tie-in to our goal of helping you to understand and achieve wealth. And of course, our banner for Black Enterprise, our motto is wealth for life. Well, this conversation is just the topic to kind of delve into an important aspect of wealth building, which is wealth management. Today, we have a great guest, someone who has built a career in this space. Her name is Camille Stewart, Head of Continuous Delivery, Manulife Investment Management. Welcome to the show, Camille.
Thanks so much for having me, Alfred.
Listen, I feel really blessed, as I always do with all my guests, to have you on the show because you really can give an inside understanding of things that people have kind of a surface understanding of. But then, we go beyond the hype to kind of get a real deep dive into what it's really like from a person who's not only has the expertise, but the lived experience of the topic that we're talking about. So we're talking about your career in wealth management, investment management. But let's start by giving our audience an understanding of your journey to what you do now, how you come to do what you do now. I know your title is Head of Continuous Delivery for Manulife Investment Management, but what's the Camille Stewart story? How did she become to do what you do today?
So, Alfred, I was one of those, kids in university who didn't really know what they wanted to do or be when they grew up. I actually wanted to be a dentist and started down the path in the sciences, in the health sciences, and realized one summer when I worked in a dental office, that wasn't for me. And so, with that experience of working in the dental office, I actually, when I graduated, it was, at a time of an economic downturn. I wasn't sure what I was really going to do. And so I ended up working at an insurance company. And I started off, when you go to the dentist, sometimes you get to submit that claim to a company and get a reimbursement, or for like a health service. That was my start. And I've been in the industry now for almost 30 years. I can't believe it. So I've worked my way up from, how we say, starting from the bottom, now we're here. I have worked my way from the very, very bottom of the financial services industry. And today, I have the privilege of working with financial advisors, just really working with them on the technology, the platforms, and the offerings that they can provide to day-to-day clients. How are they helping their clients build wealth? In order to do that, there are tools and capabilities and platforms that they need. So, continuous delivery is a really hype way of saying I'm always trying to deliver for the advisors so that they can put their best foot forward in front of their clients.
On I also host another show for Black Enterprise called Your Money, Your Life, where most of the guests are financial coaches and financial advisors, financial planners with some deviation, and often our audience needs to understand the different types of roles that are played in the broader space of financial management, of financial planning. And I tell people that while everyone needs a financial planner on some level to help them to plan and then execute a plan to grow their wealth, wealth management is a higher level. I'm using my words than your words of a specialty, because this is an audience that has wealth but wants to be able to manage it effectively from year to year, decade to decade, and ultimately for future generations. Talk to me about why you you came to this space and you're enjoying this space, but the importance of wealth management as particularly the Black enterprise audience becomes comprised of people who do have a significant amount of wealth, but there's more to it than just getting it. Then is what do you do after you get it and how you manage that. And obviously your advisors work with their clients to do that.
Right. So I would say that, as you say, if you think about your audience, the importance of a financial plan, and it's not just building the plan once and set it and forget about it. You've got to revisit that plan on a regular basis. And so, from my perspective, when we think about wealth and asset management, we focus on the advisors have to place the money with a financial institution somewhere, right? So for us, it's developing retirement plans. So we provide services to employers so that they can, we're looking at the 401ks and what makes sense there. We are also managing institutional assets. So when you think about foundations or large pension plans, um, as well as thinking about the individual and the everyday person. So there are a couple of things that, from that broader lens, and when you think down to the individual, there's a couple of things that we like to think about. Number one, as you alluded to, health is wealth. So we can have the greatest financial plan, but if we're not approaching our health and thinking about what are the things that we need to make sure that we're actually enjoying that plan, the fruition of that plan, to me, that's a miss. And so we really think about this holistically. What's your health plan? What are your health goals? How are you making sure that you are thinking about being the best individual that you can be, accompanied with a strong financial plan? Because we don't want to make a whole bunch of money and say we've arrived, and then people are passing away early. And we do see in particularly in the Black community, the longevity isn't always there. And so we've got to start thinking about the incorporation of health and wealth, and that's something that our organization continues to focus on.
Camille, you are singing my song. My audience knows this because I'm a passionate fitness influencer. As you see in the background, my hobby is natural bodybuilding, so I do that for fun. But it was my whole mindset around that when I adopted that lifestyle now, over 30 years ago, was this idea that I had to extend my earning years, and the only way to extend my earning years was to be healthier and to live longer. And you already alluded to it. Sadly, when you look at health disparities, um, the general rule, obviously there are broad exceptions, is that Black men tend to die in their peak earning years, if you will, between ages 50 and 70, and Black women live longer. But if you're not at your healthiest, then it's hard to really maximize your potential, whether you're doing it as a professional or as an entrepreneur. So, I mean, we literally just had in Nashville the Black Enterprise Health is Wealth Weekend, specifically to focus on that connection. So it really it's inspiring for me to hear you as a wealth management professional in the wealth management industry to reinforce that idea for our audience in the work that you do for Manulife Investment Management. Talk to me, speaking of Manulife, and I'm someone who just celebrated his 36th anniversary of my first day at the job at Black Enterprise. And there's always people ask you, well, what would make you stay at an organization that long, and why? And I have my answers for why. I still have a very satisfactory, rewarding career at Black Enterprise. 36 years later, when my original goal was to do 2 to 4 years and to be on to the next thing. What is it about you and your career and your experience at Manulife, especially given you started at the bottom, that's that's kept you there so long, and what keeps you coming back every day? I can feel the sense of passion and commitment you have for your work. Talk to me about that, especially for those who might consider a career, whether in wealth management in general or at Manulife in particular.
Well, Alfred, I think about my own personal story. Uh, when I was in university, I think it was my second year at university, my mother suffered a brain aneurysm. And that's never easy when you're in the midst of thinking about, what are you going to do with your life? And so that would have been a significant hit to, our financial picture at the time. My mom was a high school teacher, and, she did have the frame of mind, when they give you the benefits package at the beginning of the year and say, pick what benefits you want, she ticked disability. And she happened to tick to age 65. Other colleagues hadn't done that. And so we were very fortunate that she had that coverage. And the check that came in the mail every morning, or every month, I should say, was from Manulife. And so that was the first real instance where I got to know the name and see the green logo show up, because that meant, okay, for the next month, we're going to be okay. And I didn't really think that I'd have the opportunity to work for that same organization a few years later. But once I got there, I realized that, just as how they fulfilled their promise to me and my family, uh, I was able to see that we could do that at scale. How could we help other families from an insurance perspective, from a wealth and asset management perspective? Number one, build wealth and protect the assets that they've grown. And so, yes, there are tumultuous times in markets. There are things that we go through, but for me, sticking with a company that meant so much to me and my family, and to be able to help others, is really what keeps me here every day.
One of the things that I experienced as I progressed in my chosen career, is advice I give to, I do a lot of mentoring to my mentees, including my children who are all adults now, is that you're on the right path at a job or at a company or in a career when you wake up and it's going to be a bad day or a rough day, but you still want to go. You still want that. And that's what I experienced. And I knew I was at the right place when I came to Black Enterprise in my late 20s, when it was like, I know it's going to be a rough day. I already know, based on what happened yesterday, I know it's going to be a rough day today, but I still can't wait to go. What is it that keeps you coming back day after day? Like you said, the economy's changed. There's no magic company. Even the companies that we love have your rough experiences. But day after day, what is it that keeps you coming back, in this profession and in this company?
Well, Alfred, it's always going to come down to the people. Like, the people make
Mm.
your day to day either great, or you're going to have, a whole lot of friction. If you look at why people stay with companies, or particularly why they leave, it always comes down to human interaction. And so for me, to be able to look the way I do and grow up in this organization with the opportunities that I've been given has been just tremendous. I've had not only mentors and sponsors, but really just been able to say, hey, how would you handle this situation? You know what? Things look a little bumpy. I need to escalate, or I need to be able to talk to a senior leader about this. I don't have to worry about hierarchy or any of those kinds of things. So for me, being able to have real conversations with leadership that maybe for the most part may not look like me, and feel very comfortable. Our organization has allowed me personally to flourish. And I'm also, executive sponsor of our, we call it ERGs, but it's really the employee resource groups, where we provide tools and just basically ways that our Black employees can manage their careers. And so for me to be able to continue to mentor and help other Black employees navigate the corporate landscape, that for me, seeing someone move from a manager to a director to assistant vice president to vice president, knowing that I was part of their journey, man, that's really what keeps me going. Just being able to build talent within the same organization that has done so much for me, and to be able to represent them on a daily basis. So for me, yes, I could go to another organization, but this is a global firm with global reach, and I can sit here in my home and have access and influence from North America to Europe to Asia. And I don't know that I'd be able to do that elsewhere. So that's what keeps me coming in day to day, even when things get bumpy.
See, that is so powerful for a couple of reasons. One, the financial services industry in general, wealth management in position, while there are more Black people and Black women in that space than ever before, we're still not close to what you would consider, representation that's on par with how we represent in the larger society. So you're a symbol of the progress that's already been made, but you're also a beacon and a role model and a potential inspiration. And beyond the hype, part of our work at Black Enterprise is to showcase people like you, because I know there are people in our audience, whether for this show or for the Black Enterprise audience in general, is going to say, "Oh, a Camille Stewart exists. That's proof it can be done." And again, the fact that you say no, you started out at the at kind of a entry level is probably too an exaggeration, but a lower level, if you will, in
Oh,
the
it was
firm in the
entry.
risen.
It was
Oh,
entry
it was
level.
entry.
It
Okay,
was
call it
it
out.
was it was below customer service. It was real
Oh,
entry when I
oh, so
started.
it's real entry. Okay. Well, that even underscores my point more, that not only are you there, but you can say, no, I'm here. And the environment was such that I chose to come back, that I was able to advance. And that says more, because of your 30-year career, and sends a stronger message about the possibilities at Manulife than practically anything that either of us could say. And you brought it back to it. You want to feel, I tell people, over my time at Black Enterprise, and again, there's tough days, there are tough cycles, but that when you look around, you want to look up and see that whoever is above you is supportive. You want to feel like you got a team if you're managing other people that believe in your leadership. But I tell people the most important people for me is I want to look to my left and my right and feel like these people are going to be assets and teammates, in addressing whatever challenge that we have, and not either disinterested or worse, undermining our ability to solve the problem. When you look around, like I said, it's the people, because organizations are organizations, and when you look around and you feel like, man, I really like and respect and feel supported, and I'm glad that these people are on my team, and I know we can do it, whatever it is. I know people that work in organizations that they don't feel that way, and it takes not only it takes a psychological and emotional toll on you. Forget about the career and professional toll. So I totally get that, and again, I share that experience with my own experience. Whenever someone's been around an organization that long, it really does boil down to the people when all is said and done. Talk to me, again, a relatively unique space that you've been in, the career journey that you've had. What have you learned about wealth building itself and its impact on families, communities, lives? We already talked about the health and wealth correlation, and I told you need health to achieve wealth, but you also need to manage your wealth in such a way that extends health, because that changes families and from generation to generation. But what else have you learned about wealth building in your experience, at Manulife?
I think you touched on some of the points, Alfred. Like having goals, being very, very clear about your financial goals is so important. I think as a community, we sometimes, yes, some of us may be more advanced and we're in a better financial place now, but we can think back to a time where we would not necessarily have put things on paper, right? We wouldn't have done the budget, or, you know what, as long as I've got money to do my hair and my nails, we're going to be okay. And so we want to make sure, first of all, that we're continuously looking at, what are our goals? What are the things that we're trying to achieve? Everybody's goals are different, right? If you're saving for a home, if it's putting children through university, if it's, first property, second property, or retirement. And then this concept of retirement, that conversation has been changing. What does retirement actually mean? What does it look like? You may leave the organization that you're working with today and start your own business or do something differently. So just really understanding, what are your financial goals? When do you want to achieve those goals by? And then, rolling up your sleeves and working with a financial professional to map that plan out. One of the mistakes I know I've certainly made, and I think others make, is that we wait until we think we now have money to build the plan. And you actually should be looking to build the plan before the assets start to and roll in, because cash flow and liquidity and the things that you want to do, you want to make sure that you're always thinking about today, and uh, putting money aside for that future. So you know sometimes people say, when I make my first X, then I'll get a financial advisor or really start look at planning. The earlier you can plan, the earlier that you can save and start really starting to see that game plan come together, the more successful you'll be. There's just no getting around the fact that you are multiple times more likely to reach your financial goals with a plan and with a professional than trying to do it on your own, unless you are very, very versed in trading, and you're a do-it-yourselfer. Great. But for the most part, we aren't that. We're not there. And so we really value advice in our organization. We have seen the vast difference that advice has made. And the earlier that we can get folks thinking about accessing advice and getting a plan together, that's when we'll really start to see a significant difference in our own community from a financial perspective.
A couple of important points that you make, and I had to learn by experiences too. I'm like you. I made some of these misassumptions around um, planning for wealth, managing wealth. One of them revelations that I got a few years ago when I was trying to give advice to my children was, I said, don't think of it about as wealth planning. Think about it as planning for wealth. Because if you think about it as planning for wealth, you don't have to have the wealth yet. And it gets you out of that mindset of, when I make a certain amount of money or when I get to this certain point, then I'll think about financial planning. And so I tell my mentees, it's about planning for wealth. If you're planning for wealth, you don't have to have it yet, but you'll be happy that you started the planning when you did. The other thing that you touched upon that I think is really important is this idea that, well, okay, I already talked about my main motivation when I got serious about fitness was to extend my earning years, to figure out what ways I can do to extend my earning years. The flip side of that is that even though we talk about some of the health equity and longevity challenges facing Black people, on the flip side, we are living longer lives. And what used to be considered retirement, I guess, got a plan to kind of get to 65 and then kind of coast for the rest of the way. That was maybe our parents or grandparents' thought process. I'm sitting here and I just turned 63, and I'm thinking I want to live another 3, maybe 4 decades, but I'm still going to have to have a place to live. I'm still going to have food to eat. The bills don't stop. You don't age out of financing your life. And so you talked about retirement planning and how that's changed. And we still call it retirement planning because that's a language that people can understand. But I tell people it's really kind of like last quarter life planning,
Right.
whether you actually retire or not, because you're going to need to find ways to finance the life that you want. And wealth management and financial planning is the key to that. It's I know I came up in a generation when I thought that financial planning kind of ended at quote unquote retirement age. And now I'm looking and saying, no, I got to continue to do financial planning and wealth management for the foreseeable future, not only to be able to support myself, but also to have the lifestyle that I want. And that comes with planning. What has been the experience of Manulife in terms of helping people to understand that in many ways, the most important financial planning is what you plan for after the age of 45 or 50, even though you should be starting it in your 20s?
Well, you raised some really great points, Alfred. No, so number one, I would say you got to think about that thing called insurance. See, oftentimes we talk about our own wealth, but when it comes to intergenerational wealth and wealth transfer, it's a rare day that that's done without insurance. So, really thinking about locking that in when you're young enough and you're healthy enough, because it gets way more expensive as you get older. And working with a professional to just, really understand how much do you and your family need from an insurance perspective. And with that peace of mind, and also thinking, to your point, as I'd said earlier, What are the things that you want to do in that next chapter of your life? I know, I love to travel, and that means I'm going to want to do a lot more traveling later on. So, how am I going to be able to afford the places that I want to go to? You know, and I don't want to travel on the cheap either. So,
Right.
I want to live large and do things well when I travel. So what does
Say
that
that
look like?
again. Say that again, because I'm
That's
telling you,
right. That's right.
I came out of the pandemic shutdown because prior to 2020, nearly all my travel was just work related. It wasn't that I wasn't going anywhere. And I was going to nice places, but I was going because I happened to go, whether it was a speech or a conference of Black Enterprise. Camille, I came out of the pandemic. I was like, when I get back outside, I'm going all the way outside.
That's
Like,
right.
and I want to have fun. Like I said, I'm not want to do this on a budget. I want to, my kids are grown. I'm not married. Let me go.
That's right.
And and you're right. So again, it's not just about surviving until
It's
you suddenly
about
transition.
thriving.
It's about thriving. And you said a whole word, Camille. I'm
That's
telling you.
that's right. So we have the aspiration, but we need the money to do it. And we
Yes.
don't want to come back and say, okay, now it's all about hamburgers and hot dogs because we blew everything that we have. So really thinking through the plan. When do you want to start? And I often say to people, close your eyes and think about what's that first day when you leave whatever organization it is. What does that look like? Is it's going to feel great for a week or two, but if you don't have a plan and don't have a vision after, that's where you start to see people don't feel like they're connected to society. So even if you've got all the money in the world, you also have to think about what are you going to do with your time. Every day that you're above ground costs money. So what are we eating? What are we doing? There are habits that we have today in our working and wealth accumulation years that we just don't think about, right? You're heading to the office. You may stop at Starbucks. We talked about the $5, the coffees. Aside from the cost, well, when you're on that other side and you're retired, are you still going to get up and drive to Starbucks or not? There are just so many habits that are going to start to change, and we don't necessarily plan for that. So you got to plan for that from an emotional and mental health standpoint, and also from a financial standpoint. I've said in the past that the great equalizer is this thing called retirement. So we all have our fancy titles in our wealth accumulation years, but then when we retire, we all say, I'm retired. And so how that's something that people have to work through as well. How comfortable are we using that title? uh, all these things we've got to prepare for. So it is the financial planning and also starting to do some of that mental planning as to what are those later years actually going to start to look like. What do I want to do for the first 6 months, a year? Man, I just want to get out of the game and relax. And then I might get back into it. What can you give to another generation or to the community so that you're still managing to give and to be sort of a vibrant member of society. All those things have to be thought through and planned for. And so from my perspective, that's an integral part of wealth planning and managing ultimately the life that you want to live.
See, I love how you connected the dots there in this conversation. You touched a little bit on mental health and planning, and you used the word several times, feeling. How do you feel about money? How do you feel about your life? How about you feel about the next step and what you want to do? And one of the things that I think great financial professionals that I both have interviewed for the shows I host, but even work with personally, is they get me, and I'm someone who's been a financial journalist for 30 years, but I'm not a financial expert. I'm not someone that can give advice or anything like that. I just have like a wealth of knowledge because of the work that I do and getting to talk to people like you for over nearly 40 years. But the best people I know in this space, no matter where they are in this space, and many of the people I interview for my other show, Your Money, Your Life, we get into the feelings. Why do you feel the way you do about your money? Where did those feelings come from as you grew up? What do you come to believe? To what degree do those beliefs need to change before you can do something different than what you've already done? And for me, as you said, what do I want to feel like? We already know when we talk about connecting longevity and health, one of the key things that extends longevity, or two things, is having a sense of purpose. And we know people who will retire and lose their sense of daily purpose, and that has a negative effect on their health, mentally and otherwise. And the quality of the relationships they have. That healthy relationships is a very big key to longevity. And for me, that ties back to not only do I have money to travel or to do things for me, but what does that allow me to do? You touched on it, for my alma mater, for my church, for my kids, for my grandkids. Do I have vibrant relationships, and do I still a sense of being valued? And when you feel like I don't have options and I can't do things and I can't have these relationships, again, that I don't think people automatically think about that when it comes to wealth management and financial planning, but it all comes home to roost, like you said, when the day comes and you're like, okay, how do I feel about tomorrow? How do I feel about today? And and it could be the difference between, yep, I can't wait to get out and go do things and talk to people, or I don't even want to get out of bed because I have not planned for this eventuality in my life.
Well, I think it comes down to some basic principles. I mean, we use language that can get complicated and fancy, but at the end of the day, it is planning for your life and making sure that you can do the things that you want to do in your life for as long as you are alive, or for as long as you live. And so, making sure that you are planned. I mean, there's always going to be instances where there are surprises or things that may come up, but to the best of your ability, how have we planned? Have we thought through, if you've got a spouse, partner, you've got kids and grandkids, how do they fit into your plan? I am from a very large family. My dad is one of 17. My mother is one of 7. I have relatives to sell. I often joke if anybody wants to buy some. Um, but they are a huge part of my life and, how I see my days on the planet. And so there are things that we like to do. We have our fam jams. We love to travel as a family. And so, somebody will pick an island. Okay, we're all going to invade that poor resort's going to have to deal with us. But all these things are talked about and planned for. Now, I happen to come from a family of teachers and financial professionals. I have no idea how that just kind of worked out. And so we just naturally plan things and talk about plans, and we're comfortable with that. And I wish everyone would feel as comfortable. Not that you've got to go through everyone's math, but you feel comfortable asking questions that may impact your financial situation. Again, there are lots of professionals that are available to help.
You said the word of the unexpected, and we already know that no matter how well you plan, things don't go according to plan. But that's not an excuse not to plan. I mean, both of us had careers that we did not plan. I told people, if you had told me, when I joined Black Enterprise, that I'd be there 36 years later or even 5 years later, I'd be like, nah, that's not the plan. But the fact that I had a plan at all was very important. And the reason I bring that up, particularly in the context of wealth building and wealth management, is, and again, this is advice I give to other people, whether my children or other people who come to me for advice, is that when we talk about planning for the unexpected, don't think of it always as a negative thing. It's also the unexpected positives, the unexpected opportunities. And my oldest daughter is a perfect example because she's been an entrepreneur her whole professional career. But because of the lessons she's learned, that frankly I didn't learn until I was in my 20s, but she learned it growing up. She had resources to take advantage of unexpected opportunities that pop up. And for example, I tell young entrepreneurs, the one reason you want to do financial planning is not in case something goes wrong, but sometimes something goes right. And you have money sitting aside to take advantage of an opportunity that you didn't know would come up. And so I always tell people it's not just about planning for emergencies, it's also about financial planning for opportunities. And if you've got resources set aside for that unexpected opportunity, you don't have to like, oh, I got to pass on it because I can't do it. You're going to have the luxury of saying, no, I could take advantage of that because I didn't know it was going to happen, but I have done some planning and just in case something good happened. I mean, I don't know. Has that been some of your experience, being able to plan for the good that may happen? And sometimes the good is I plan so well that I'm ready to just take a break from my work for a year because I don't like this job, but I have
Well,
the
you
luxury
know, Alfred, that
of
is
doing it.
exactly what I was going to touch on. I have
Right.
seen many individuals, so I'm just going to talk about one of my good friends who
Mm.
decided at the age of 42 to retire. Now, he is an absolute planner. He is a financial planner. He's licensed. And he was a little bit tighter with money than I'd be comfortable with. But he was, very clear. He had no mortgage. He already had university expenses put aside for his son. And so he said, "Yep, I'm good. I'm going to walk away and I'm actually just going to travel with my dad for a year because my dad's getting older and I don't know that we're going to actually be able to do this when I'm
Mm.
looking to retire. Dad won't be well enough or, won't necessarily have the mobility to be able to do this." And he was able to take a year and travel to different parts of the planet with his father pre COVID. And to this
Wow.
day, he says, man, that was the best decision because post COVID, you know, uh, those couple of years being locked up, it's impacted a lot of older folks' mobility and their comfort level traveling. So he can't do that with his dad now. He's got to stay sort of either close to the states or with close to Canada, but really just stay within North America. He can't make any more of those exotic trips with his dad, and so that really said to me, man, if he hadn't planned, that would have been a real life experience that he would have missed out on. And so, to your point, planning is not just what happens if I, get sick. It really is about, what, I'm okay now. I'm going to take the opportunity to take a step back and then reintroduce myself to the workforce, maybe in a different form, which is what he did. He consults and and then he has moments where he's like, you know what, I think I'm going to take another 6 months off because I just feel like doing that. He's got the financial independence to walk away, take a couple of gigs, and live the life that he wants to live. And so, although it's not my personal story, to have someone that close to me live that life really was an aha moment for me to say, hey, you're planning, but you're not planning like this person. And not that it's a competition,
Right, right.
but just to be able to say, I want to make sure that I'm prepared to do the things that my husband and I think are most important for us.
Yeah, it's circling back to what we say all the time at Black Enterprise. The real measure of wealth is options.
That's right.
Like I like working, but I want to work at what I want to do because I actually want to do it, which is a very different thing from if I don't do this, I can't make it, or if I don't do this, I won't survive. And so it's the freedom to take time off, it's the freedom to go travel, it's the freedom to say I want to get out of this profession and get into this other profession. It's the freedom to say I just want to consult and have a more flexible schedule. And I tell people, again, younger people, once you get past the age, and it's not that it's all, you could do it earlier, you can do it later, but at a certain point, you want to know that you're getting out of bed to do what you really want to do with your time, which is the ultimate form of wealth. The currency is time. It's the one resource you don't know how much you got, and once you spend it. And I can think of your friend who traveled with his father. He's going to look back and say, yeah, what do I value more? The money that I spent that I could have saved by not doing it, or this experience, this unforgettable, priceless experience of traveling with my father when we both can enjoy the experience and each other And I mean,
Hmm.
I mean, I totally get that. I mean, I totally get that. But I want to switch gears a little bit while I still have you. Your time is so valuable because, as I said earlier, there are people, and this has been Black Enterprise's legacy, um, where people will whether you know the magazine that we used to do for 40 something years, and now we're a digital media and a virtual and live events company. But whatever the content platform is, the thing that's part of our legacy is people will see a Camille Stewart, and we inevitably know that somewhere down the line, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, someone will say to us, "You know, I saw that interview with Camille Stewart, and it made me think about what I want to do with my life. It made me think about opportunities and possibilities that I hadn't considered before. And I'm doing what I am today because of that person that I saw on Beyond the Hype, or I saw at blackenterprise.com, or in an earlier iteration, I read about in Black Enterprise magazine, you know, 5, 10, 15 years ago." So, what kind of advice would you give to people in the Black Enterprise audience, the Beyond the Hype audience, who says, you know what, I hadn't thought about a career in wealth management. I hadn't thought about a career in the financial services industry or at Manulife. What tips would you give to our audience for people who want to consider starting a career in that path, whether they were doing it laterally transferring from another
Hmm.
profession, or as you did, you came in at the entry level and built a career? What are some of the things that people should think about?
Right. Because first of all, I had no idea that this was an option when I was in university. And you mentioned the Black Enterprise magazines. As a child, my dad used to bring those magazines home, and I used to flip through, and I didn't really understand what all of it meant, but it was still interesting for me to see Black successful people, Black stories that were uplifting. And so, my advice would be number one, it's never too late. Don't think that you can't get into this field because, well, I've picked one thing and I probably am stuck here. It isn't too late. When I look at the financial services landscape, it is vast and it is wide. So one of the things that I would first focus on, you got to be good at math. I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna play on at that one. Financial services is about the numbers, making sure that we have an understanding if it's insurance, if it's health benefits. There really is an emphasis on understanding math. But if you're in economics, and if you are especially good at people, relationships, and just really being able to connect with the average person. I look at Frances Donald, our chief, our global chief economist, and she is young and she is dynamic and she's just trying to break, the difficult terms into everyday language. So we have pioneers who are trying to do things differently within our own space. So first, if you are passionate about making decisions easier and lives better for everyday, I will say everyday human beings, then you can fit into the landscape. There are specific roles that you would have to be, you have to have certain financial accreditation or specific courses that you would need to take. But there are just so many different ways to enter. There's leadership, there's marketing, there are just so many different, customer experience roles that we have. So even if you're not an accountant and an actuary and a CFA, there are still other ways that you can connect into large financial services. But the only thing I say to people is you got to be good at math because everybody speaks that mathematical language in the building.
Well, I always tell people no matter what you do, and again, Black Enterprise is a business, a financial publication or a media company. And I was like, the way we keep score in business is is the money, and that's math.
That's correct.
So,
That's
you know,
correct.
how many times I talk to entrepreneurs who say, I love my business, but I don't like doing the math part. It's like, but that's how we keep score. That's like that's how we do it.
Nope.
So, I just echo that. But the other thing I like you to weigh in on is someone who did not plan at the front end to go into this profession, who early in their career thought they were going to end up in dentistry, what I like about today's financial services industry, and when I say today's, I will say they say post 2000, generously speaking, is that it is much more broad and diverse and welcoming from many great skill sets that could be transferred from other professions. Like you can't get around the fact that you got to have some affinity for math, but you do have to have people skills that weren't always valued in the financial services industry once upon a time. You do have to have relationship building skills, business development skills, team leadership skills, and an empathy for a client orientation that I think didn't always exist in the financial services industry. Well, in wealth management, it always existed because you have pretty important clients. But I think now there's a perception that no matter where you are on your journey, a very consumer client focused mindset, a customer focused mindset is way more valued in the industry. And I think that speaks to how there are a lot of opportunities for people to transfer from other industries where a lot of the skills you need to be successful you already have. I mean, has that been your experience in terms of not only the people in Manulife, but other people, ERG groups and other groups that you
You
observe
know,
people's career?
you really hit the nail on the head. We have it just very recently. We've had someone join our organization within the past year who came from the gaming or gambling industry, and so
Mm-hmm.
you would think, what do those two things have in common?
Right.
Gambling and discipline seem to be on opposite ends. But this person, she had a great focus on customer experience and
Mm-hmm.
really understood how to map those experiences and really call out the pain points that clients would go through. So to your point, there are just so many different transferable skills that we have brought into our own organization. And I think that's why you're seeing and feeling a different culture and a different experience with financial services organizations. Because it's not just the economists and actuaries and accountants, but it really is the culmination of the different disciplines coming together, because again we're touching millions of everyday people. We've got to be able to speak to them in their language, otherwise we won't be successful. And in order to do that, you need a diverse background, and we're absolutely focused as an organization on making sure that we're also incorporating more of the Black experience and the Black voice into our organization, which for me personally is just so important.
Yeah, you hit a really important point in terms of why it's important again to have Camille Stewart's and other people of diverse backgrounds, because the consumers and the clients you're serving are by nature more diverse. And there is a different appreciation in the financial services industry, and I would say in business in general. It used to be that numbers are numbers are numbers, and the people, it doesn't matter. But we've already talked about, even in the course of this conversation, elements of culture, orientation, belief about money, about life expectations that vary from person to person, family, culture to culture, and it's almost impossible to provide effective advice and service, much less getting those people to actually take the advice. We could do a whole nother show that we talk about on Your Money, Your Life, about that capacity of not only having the expertise to give the advice, but the teaching ability and the trust to get the client to actually take the advice. And it doesn't surprise me that you come from a family of teachers and financial advisors, because when all is said and done, it's your capacity to get people to do it
That's correct.
more than it is the capacity to tell them what to do. And I know when I was in college, us students knew the difference between the professors and the real teachers.
Right.
They all may have had all the knowledge, but only the teachers could get it out of their heads and into your head in a language that you could understand.
That
And
is
the
that is
capacity to do that is
so
critical in your industry.
that is so correct, Alfred. And this is why, when you talk about transferable skills, I mean, one of the things that we have really focused on in the past few years is digitizing a lot of these experiences. So you think about, you went from a magazine to digital platforms. We too have to be able to educate and really, open up wealth and asset management to everyday folks. And most are on a phone or are looking at, some type of digital medium. And so, how do you take those complicated and difficult concepts and break them down and feed them to individuals in a way that they can digest? And for the most part, it's through a digital medium. And so those are skills that we are constantly looking for. Again, may not have, grown up in financial services, but those skills are just so relevant today.
As we come down the home stretch of our conversation, Camille, which I got to say I'm enjoying tremendously, so I know our audience is too. Um, I never end an interview without also talking about aspects of the whole person, the whole Camille, work-life balance. In other words, you can have the perfect job in the perfect industry with the perfect skill sets, but your we found this out in many ways the hard way during the COVID shutdown. It's the larger life that you build that brings so you can bring your best and most authentic self to your work. What do you
Mhm.
do, when you're not thinking about, your clients or thinking about the advisors that you're supporting? We already know you like to travel. We know that that's part of the
Yes.
plan. But what is it that makes Camille the best Camille she could be so she can bring that to her, both her, her family as well as her work life?
Well, like you, I exercise every day. Even, within the COVID time, I was one of those individuals who, bought a treadmill, brought the bike, got some weights, because I still had to continue to exercise if I was going to be my best self. So, my daily routine is wake up, read the word, spend that time in meditation, exercise, get ready, and then I face the day. I absolutely love to cook. When you come from a crew and clan my size, we know how to cook for large crowds, and so I absolutely enjoy cooking. That's sort of my place where I can go and just completely unplug. So if you need mac cheese, lasagna, I'm of West Indian descent, so the oxtail, the jerk chicken, the pilau, that is really my happy place. Love, love, love to cook.
Okay, so for my audience, I did not pay Camille to say any of that stuff, especially the exercise by any means necessary. But again, you're singing my song. And I was like, I get to work out every day, and it's because I work out every day and I pay attention to nutrition. And I feel my best, I perform my best. I get a lot of psychological and emotional health benefits out of it. And so no, I didn't set all that up. Camille came to that on her own. But again, anybody who watches my show or follows me on social knows how passionate about, for me, the connection between physical health, mental health and wellness, emotional health and wellness, and a daily committed spiritual practice. I too read the word. I try to do it every morning, but before the day is out, because all that to me is holistic. All of that goes together, and it's about performance over time. I tell you, anybody can be excellent for a season,
It's
but when you talk
correct.
to people who are decade after decade not only doing well and doing good, but they're still enjoying the experience, to me that usually somebody has put together kind of a plan, and everybody's plan is different for physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and then you build it into a routine, and then you look up and 30 years later you got a Camille Stewart doing her best and living her best life and giving her best effort for both family and herself, and obviously for Manulife. So I'm glad you said all that, but I didn't pay her to do it.
No.
What is the best way, Camille? And we're really out of time, and this always happens with our shows. We always know we're not going to get it all in an hour. There's so many themes that we touched on, and our goal with everything we do at Black Enterprise, and we say the goal of a successful interview is what the people do after the interview, or the goal of a successful event is what attendees do after the event. What are some things you want to leave with our listeners. And what's the best way for people that want to stay connected and follow up with you, whether it's on social or whatever, if only to see your career continue to progress, but also to follow up on some of the things that they heard from you during the course of this conversation?
Best way to stay connected to me, first of all, is on LinkedIn. So I am just under Camille Stewart, and you will be able to find me there. And, the things that I would leave the audience with are just to remember that it is never too late to plan. You may have planned financially, but you didn't necessarily plan for those other emotional elements of your life. It's never too late to get a fulsome plan together. It is never too late to start exercising, even if it is just getting up, walking, or putting on some music and dancing. It does not have to be hard. You just have to get your body moving. A really good annual physical assessment to understand your health is also critical to your well-being, and just really understanding where are we today, and then what are we going to be planning for in the future. So I wish everyone health, wealth, success, joy, peace, and happiness, because that's really what we're trying to inspire people to live to, and making sure that we can help as many individuals as possible. So thank you, and thank you for the time.
Well, Camille, thank you so much. And that was a wonderful word to end it on. I tell people it's not really about the points on the scoreboard. It's about the outcome of the game. And the outcome of the game is, how do you feel about your life day to day? And how will you feel about it as time goes on? And so I'm just so glad you were able to take time to be on the show. Thank you, Camille, for joining us for this latest edition of Beyond the Hype.
Thank you so much.
And that's it for another edition of Beyond the Hype. This episode was brought to you by John Hancock. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.